Jill and Stacy Show.
Steve Rawlings, Senate District 11. I'll have to leave early because we have a freak off at home. We're going to have a freak off. Do you know what a freak off is?
No, I want to know.
That was supposed to be a joke. Never mind. That's what Diddy is. So we're going to do that tonight, so I got to leave early. See what that's all about.
Yes, all right. Thank you very much. We got Chris McDaniels right here, so you can add the list of things I didn't think I'd hear tonight. Is Steve Rawlings talking about Diddy's freak off. So, Chris McDaniel, I'm from Kenton County. I represent the 23rd District, which is basically the northern third of Kenton County, and I own and operate McD Concrete over in Erlanger, Kentucky. We got Mark Hart.
I live in Falmouth. I represent 78,000 District, which is all of Middleton County, and the southern parts, the eastern parts of Kenton, Campbell, and Boone. I'm the quintessential Northern Kentucky rep because I have all the counties.
We got Kim Banton.
Kim Banton, District 63, which is mostly Kenton County and a little bit of Boone.
Marianne Proctor.
Marianne Proctor, 60th District, Union, right here. We have portions of Florence.
Savannah Maddox.
I'm Savannah Maddox. I'm chair of the Northern Kentucky Caucus, and I represent Grant County and portions of Boone, Kenton, and Gallatin County.
We got Steve Doan.
Steve Doan, House District 69. I represent Kenton County and Boone County. I have Erlanger, Ellesmere, Independence, Crestview Hills, 2 voters in Exeter who've never voted for me because they're Democrats, and then the city of Florence.
TJ Roberts, House District 66. That is part of Boone County, namely Burlington, Hebron, Rapid Hash, Francisville, Bulletsville, and Petersburg.
All right, perfect. So I guess we're just going to start off right off the top, and you guys can feel free to jump in and answer whichever questions you want. What were the most significant policy priorities addressed this session and why?
Go ahead.
So I'll just jump right off. It was House Bill 1, which was a reduction in the income tax, right? And can everybody hear me? Yeah, okay. So House Bill 1 was a reduction in the income tax, and the reason for that is it's been a long time coming. It started with a lot of spending controls for a lot of years, and has accelerated it where we're able to fairly frequently do something to reduce it. And since I'm kind of the finance nerd of the town, to me that's the biggest thing we do.
That was obviously very, very important, but I did some cleanup bills, which are not a big deal. We had 2 huge bills. The first one is my favorite, done by Marianne Proctor, and that was the squatters bill, which I think came right behind H1. And the other one was gold and silver, not taxable, TJ Roberts, and that was a priority bill, and he was a freshman. I just wanted to share that with you.
All right, so yeah, I'll just bring up one as well. One of the more important bills that I think is transformative for how government is done in Kentucky was House Bill 6, the REINS Act. This bill makes it where if the administrative state tries to promulgate a regulation that'll cost more than $500,000 over the span of 2 years, the legislature gets a vote on it before it takes effect. Look, the executive branch lawmaking has to stop. The governor named me in a lawsuit over it, so I do find that rather entertaining because he thinks he's a king, but we live in a system of separation of powers. So I just wanted to add that and put that on the table. Yeah. We also had Senator Rawlings' Senate Bill 84 to get rid of judicial requirements to defer to the executive branch as well. So we really strengthened the separation of powers doctrines in the Commonwealth of Kentucky today. I think those were huge wins.
Excellent. I was informed you, Kyle, you have a question?
Yeah. Hopefully you all can hear me pretty good. if you don't have, for those who don't have an election, not an election year, what issues will you be focusing on and how will you be supporting your local community?
You can go first. I don't have an election this year. Well, I do. We always do. We're in the House.
Yeah.
Well, next year's not an election.
Yeah. My mission, my quest, my focus is to do something about Kentucky's failed implementation of the Real ID program. That's was my #1 focus last session. It's going to continue to be. We have folks from all across the Commonwealth who are having to wait 45 days or longer just to get an appointment. This is been an issue, even back in 2019, I was on Transportation Committee and we would have folks come, that's 6 years before the Real ID deadline even came and went. So I believe that the standard driver's license should be returned to the county level and issued by our circuit clerks like it was done successfully for over 90 years. Obviously,
I'm interrupting. Great. Thank you.
Obviously, Real ID was passed at the federal level in 2005 as a knee-jerk reaction to 9/11, along with the Patriot Act, one of the greatest overreaches of federal government in our lifetime. So we can't do away with Real ID, but not everybody wants or needs a Real ID. If you want to board an airplane for a domestic flight or enter a restricted federal building, you can use a passport or a passport card as well. So again, moving those standard driver's licenses back to the county, it's the right thing to do for Kentuckians, and frankly, it's going to ease congestion at those regional offices as well. Thank you.
Yeah.
I want to work on, I filed it a couple years now in a row, the Homestead Act for seniors, so that we can control taxes that seniors pay on the homes that they've lived in their entire lives and are looking at losing because home prices have skyrocketed and they don't deserve that. So I'm going to continue to work on that.
I'm going to bring, again, an effort to repeal certificate of need to try to end the medical monopoly that we have here, felt very specifically here in Northern Kentucky. I saw a U.S. News report that came out. Kentucky ranks number 45 in the states of the worst health care. And yet we have some of the most restrictive things for certificate of need. We have 32 different services and technologies that keep health care out of Northern Kentucky. Those are hospitals, MRIs, ambulances, linear accelerators for cancer treatment, diabetes, you name it, services you have every day, ambulatory surgical centers, which would make your health care so much cheaper, can't bring them in, and if you do Northern Kentucky, then you know St. Elizabeth's is going to sue you out. So I just tell you, watch the lobbyists. This year, the lobbyists spent $8.7 million in 30 days. 74,000 of that was from the hospital association. 310,000 from the medical, the various primary insurances. So watch those numbers, because I guarantee you they're going to more than quadruple, because we are going to work to get rid of some certificate of need. Yes.
I'm going to jump in here because I'm working on the medical related bill too. You know, eight years is the eighth year is going to be the charm. I'm working on this bill for the 8th year, but I'm working on a medical freedom bill to take the unfunded mandate of fluoride out of our water. This year it's going to be a whole different, next session is going to be a whole different work, because I've actually got meetings next week, and Secretary Kennedy and his people are actually going to try to help us with this year. So we're hoping to get some support out of DC on this. But in essence, the mandating fluoride in our drinking water is a mandated medical treatment by the government on people. And you'll hear the arguments made that it affects the lower income, the poorer people in our state because they don't have the opportunities to get the fluoride they need. Well, that's kind of awful because at the end of the day, between the problems with school and social services, the toothpaste, your mouthwash, and all the studies that are coming out are indicating the benefit is from the topical application of fluoride on your teeth, not drinking it. And there's multiple studies out now by reputable research institutions that show that there is a direct correlation of lower IQ in infants and unborn children's IQ development and brain development because of the fluoride. So I'm going to be pursuing that again. It passed the House last year. We didn't have enough time to take it up in the Senate, but I've got plenty of support over the Senate, so I think this year might be the year. 8 years to charm.
All right. Anyone else? I'll just jump in. So, talking medical freedom, I've got a bill that I filed. It's kind of a companion to Mary Ann's. It does a little bit of the same things, but it's different. Hospital price transparency. Look, when Donald Trump became president 4 years ago, he implemented an executive order that would require hospitals to actually tell you what they're charging and what they're charging you for. when Donald Trump got defeated in the last election, that went away. And so what my bill has done is simply codifies Donald Trump's executive orders. He's gone ahead and re-implemented that on a federal level. There's some fights going about it. We want to make sure that that comes in at a state level. Come on in.
We'll start at 7, I'm sorry.
What's your legislative priority, Matt? No. And then just real quick, another bill on the food freedom topic. I followed a bill that would legalize backyard chickens. Woo! Let's go chicken! It didn't sound like a big bill when I filed, but let me tell you, I got about 20,000 pings on Twitter over it. Half of them were tagging Ron DeSantis or the governor of Indiana or some other politician saying you need to do this same thing here in our state. And the other half of them was righteous indignation. Why in God's name does government get to tell me how many chickens I can or can't have in my backyard? So that's something that I'm working on. We're going to keep fighting with it and see if we can't get it through. Thank you guys.
Please give yourself a brief introduction and what district you represent.
Hey, I'm Matt Nunn, live in northern Scott County, represent District 17, which is all of Scott County, all of Grant County, the southern half of Kenton County, and a portion of Fayette County.
All right. So I wanted to mention transfer on death. Transfer on death deed. You file a simple form. File a simple form at the courthouse. You don't have to go through probate. You don't have to have it in your will. You can just give it to a named beneficiary. 30 states have it, but we've run into some roadblocks. I had a more judiciary. I had a 20-0 vote, and people were all happy about doing it, but I couldn't get it done. So I want to try to get that done this session.
All right.
Are there any questions out here for the crowd?
And also, we have 2 more people come in. We've got Matt Nunn and Jay Williams.
He introduced himself, so please introduce yourself to the crowd and what district you represent.
So I'm Jay Williams, GEXJ, you see that up here. Franklin, Owen, Carroll, Gallatin, Southern Boone, and Southwest Kenton. In 1990, I was the first Republican ever elected in Boone County. Had never been one. It was 2-1 Democrat. By 2000, there was only 1 Democrat left in the county. So I was in for 8 years, out for 24, back 2 years ago. I'm back, roads, water, sewer, infrastructure, and plain old common sense restored in Frankfurt. Yeah, there you go.
Question?
Yeah, TJ, this past session, you introduced HB 316, I believe it was, pro-life bill. As some of you know, that's my mission in life. I'm a board member of Northern Kentucky Right to Life. And I've been working pretty closely with Cincinnati Right to Life recently. And they have brought to my attention some pretty startling information that right now, Mount Auburn Abortion Clinic is aborting 125 babies a day. 62 of those are coming from northern Kentucky. So we're losing over 1,300 citizens a month to abortion to women crossing that bridge. Now I know your bill won't solve that problem. I've got some people that are going to pay for some billboards and some things like that. But your bill addresses the abortion bill. If this is allowed to continue, 62 a day is nothing compared to what's going to happen. Can you speak to maybe getting some other people on board to support 316?
So, Kentucky is a pro-life state. Northern Kentucky is a particularly pro-life region. The unfortunate reality, though, while we have very good laws protecting the right to life in Kentucky, there are organizations that have openly subverted our laws. Organizations like Plan C that ships in abortion pills without prescriptions, without doctor consultations into Kentucky despite the ban that we have, where we only have one exception, which is the life of the mother. And there's no legal avenue to really shut these individuals down. It's now showing the abortion pill is, it always has been the #1 way that abortion is conducted, but it's also growing now. there's been more abortions since Roe v. Wade was overturned. States are codifying constitutional amendments to make that right. The Kentucky Supreme Court is fighting like crazy to make it a judicial right here in Kentucky that has no basis in our Constitution. But House Bill 316, what it does is it just creates an avenue for those entities that are operating out of state but bringing the abortion pill into the state, that there's a felony penalty with it. It also codifies a mifepristone, which, by the way, new studies are showing is way more dangerous to women than anyone had ever anticipated. The results are catastrophic to both the baby and to the mother. This bill makes it a Schedule 4 drug, so that way we have more tools in our toolbox to make sure that we can truly crack down on this and stop the shipment of these death pills into Kentucky. So, and yes, I absolutely intend to refile House Bill 316 in the 2026 session. I intend to refile it and fight for it until it becomes law in Kentucky.
Don't forget the Senate.
Yes.
It's like 11% with serious side effects, like hemorrhaging and hospital visit, and emergency room visits. It's due to the 11% is not, 10% not acceptable.
Dave, you're doing something in the Senate along with.
Yeah, that's his bill, but I ran it in the Senate.
Our bills are identical, so.
All right, you got much here there? Not to be selfish here, I know a couple of you I've talked to about it. I'm opening a business in Kentucky.
Fundamentally slow moving, and we have an administrative state that is marred with incompetence. We can look no further than the 2020 unemployment crisis. People are still waiting months in line to get unemployment if they lose their jobs to no fault of their own. And I mean, largely what we need to do, in my view, we need to cut these overly burdensome administrative regulations, get the government out of people's way, make Kentucky the most pro-business friendly state in the Commonwealth, of true free market, of don't hurt people, don't take their things. Beyond that, we're not involved. You own the consequences of your actions. We're not bailing you guys out, but we're also not getting in your way. And that's one of the things that I really think is just the fundamentals of what we should be looking at as lawmakers to get to that point of maybe reducing that time frame that they have to get back with you. But the reality is we have to make sure that we have an executive branch that will follow this.
That's the one thing I want to add to it. The key to fixing this, fixing it quick, is to put a Republican back in the government.
Mark hit the nail on the head with that one. So I had a bill rolling through the personnel cabinet, and I worked with Lindsay Tishner who put an amendment on where we said everybody's got to go back to work in the office. And then from there, you can evaluate individual work from home things.
I like that.
And it was a good thing, but the governor and his secretary actively came out and campaigned against the bill after the Senate passed it, and it died without a hearing in the House because of the political blowback from it, right? So Mark hit the nail on the head. Until you have a governor that's going to support doing these things, we will really struggle.
Yes. All right. Right here.
Thank you. So my question is, you know, the landscape has changed, so I'm going to ask you something you probably should ask before and ask you to rethink. So a couple years ago, J.D. Vance, in a speech, he says that he believes that children should have the right to vote, and that right to vote be placed in the hands of their parents. And given the persecution of the January 6th peaceful protesters and the persecution of President Trump in an unjust, is what he says, justice system, I'm hoping and asking, and would you please ask your leadership if you would consider and rethink and advocate for a firm and irrevocable right to vote for all citizens?
So the question was, should children be allowed to vote, and would we advocate for that with the leadership?
All citizens, a firm and irrevocable right to vote.
Right, but that includes children, correct? Yeah. So
and adults too, because we don't have that.
So at what age would children be allowed to vote? At what age would you let children vote?
According to J.D. Vance, he says that privilege or that right should be held in the hands of their parents. Which I don't really care about the details. I think how you handle your kids is your business. And if you let them vote out, and if you choose not to tell them about it, who's going to know until they turn 13 or whatever. So the details are always negotiable, but the ask is affirming irrevocable right to vote to all citizens. Or if that one is still affirming irrevocable right to vote for all adult citizens.
Right. So the question is affirm an irrevocable right to vote. I would argue that I feel like by and large we have that at this point, but certainly for children. I mean, as a guy with 6 teenagers in the house right now, I would not be for allowing my kids to vote. You know, or you know, my other fear would be if you allow proxy voting for kids, what would that mean for felons?
So we're dealing with felons in prison. Now once they serve their time, they get their rights back. But while they're in prison, you don't need to give them a felon a right to vote. Okay, so that's where I am with felons. That's a revocable right. As a good citizen, you need to not commit a felon to vote. Once you serve your time, you can get it back. But that goes against that.
And I just want to talk about like where the United States Constitution is on that. We have codified rights of citizens to vote. There's 4 categories that you cannot deprive someone of the right to vote on. Their race, their sex, their age as long as they have reached the age of 18, and their ability to pay a poll tax. So economic status. I think that's a fair category because when I think about voting, I think of it as a civic right. I think it's something of your government is going to reflect those who are showing up to vote. Currently incarcerated individuals, my question is, do we really want the electorate and our government to reflect those interests? Right? We have constitutional protections for those individuals in the form of the 8th Amendment. I just couldn't get behind this idea that while you are serving, that you would have a right to vote. My thing is like, I couldn't get behind it.
No, but you're saying if they serve their time, they can vote again.
Right.
The Second Amendment is one, I think it's even greater than the First Amendment.
Right.
Because that protects us from our government.
Correct.
Foremost of everything. If you served your time, you've been in there, trust me, I retired military, I defend all rights. But the greatest right, first, of course, freedom of speech. Second, a right to bear arms. If you served your time, you should be able to pick up a gun again. Period. That Second Amendment shall not be infringed upon by no one, no how, nowhere. Plain and simple, it's there. Right. You take away that right, take away the Constitution. Right. Because this country goes to hell in a handbag. Right. Plain and simple.
You serve your time and you get your rights back.
Exactly.
All right, legislators, good evening. So I have a question. So after 2 record-funded biennials, because we're going into a budget session, right? You all have funded higher education at record levels. Thank you. But we know from the data that trickle-down higher education funding and throwing funding at our universities doesn't mean that students are attending. 2025 notes a record level of lows when it comes to low-income students despite higher enrollments. We're seeing record loads of Kentuckians going to our institutions. And I looked at this morning from your district to your district, each of your districts, you all have lost a total of 46% of all low-income Kentuckians enrolling in higher education for the last 10 years. So my question to you is that what reform do we need to see in higher education to ensure that Kentuckians, not just general enrollment, and fiscal responsibility, no more throwing money at our higher education institutions, ensure that Kentuckians have a chance to attend either higher education or trade schools? What ideas and what reform?
That was the question I had. In your research, is that universities or trade schools?
So it is all universities, from private, public. You all have lost enrollment in general all across the board. And that's a national, and by the way, that is higher than the national trend, according to the Department of Education.
And does that decrease go across all social economic classes, all demographics, or just for income? Is it comparable though across?
Yes.
So it's not just lower income students that we're seeing a drop off on, it's all Kentuckians across the board.
It's all Kentuckians, but you see a disproportionate decline in low income. So what reform do we need to see after the crisis of enrollment when it comes to Kentucky low income students? And then what reforms do we need to see to ensure that we protect free speech, freedom of conscience, freedom of expression under Kentucky's higher education system?
I don't know if this answer it, but college isn't the best route for everybody. So we put a lot of emphasis on trades, vocational, apprenticeships, 2-year colleges, and getting them prepared, getting them making money rather than owing $100,000, getting them out of the workforce right away.
You know, and another thing is, as you're saying, we can't just throw money at a problem and expect it to go away. That's been the theory of government for the entire 20th century, and the problems that we have faced has gotten even worse. It's still our general philosophy. For one, if universities put higher enrollment, maybe actually prepare students for careers rather than indoctrinating them into nonsensical philosophies of cultural Marxism and big government advocacy. That's one of the first things we can do, right? More trade professions is one of the things that we absolutely need. I can tell you, even in the 2015 and 2016, our colleges were a woke nightmare. They still are in many ways. Just about every single one of them pushed against the abolition of students being treated differently on the grounds of their race. And I really appreciate what Michael Frazier, Representative Decker, and this body did to get rid of DEI at the university level. I think we should get rid of it in all government institutions. But that said, if universities want more students, read the room and understand we are tired of being lied to as young Americans and start giving us the truth. Focus on those hard skills that will actually get us to be career ready rather than having 6 figures of debt for an art degree that we're never going to be able to adequately use to pay off that debt. So stop putting us at a disadvantage. I don't think it's on us to fix the university unless we're just going to say, we're not funding these programs anymore, which maybe that's a conversation that needs to be had, but I'd like to see the fix come from the universities themselves. And maybe one of the ways to do it is to say, we're not here to bail you out.
Actually, this may be a federal issue, but the universities have to have skin in the game. Right now, they take unprepared kids, they give them as many loans as they can give them, and keep them as long as they can, regardless of whether they're ever going to be able to pay that loan back. The universities themselves have priced their product out of the market, out of the work. They need to have skin in the game. So if they give these loans to these kids and they don't get a job that can pay it back, the universities need to be on the hook for a piece of that money.
Only I would add, I agree wholeheartedly, the university's big skin in the game, and that's not the route that everybody needs to take. But the unfortunate thing is, we can't correct everything with the new law or something like that. But what we can do as a state, and I think we're doing a fairly good job of this, is we can keep promoting the workforce. We can keep promoting the trade schools and stuff that's going to let these people come out of high school and get them career ready so they can be a contributing part of our workforce. Because if we build our workforce, then we're going to bring in more business and more industry, we're going to be in more business fairly safe, and we're going to be able to build our economy. And as our economy builds, and as these people get into their careers, they might realize that I want to get more education in my particular field. And we can incentivize going back to college. That way, let's build a workforce like we're doing now with a lot of legislation we've seen over the past couple of years. I think that's the way the legislature can help. But unfortunately, we saw some of the issues we've been talking about. It's going to be in funding the universities to get the game.
Well, one of the things, one of the bills I had last year that I, as Representative Park, we don't give up. We'll just run it until you get it expires. And we win, or we, I guess, die. But we're running a bill to make tuition, when you go in as a freshman, your tuition will stay the same for your 4 consecutive years of college. That way a family can budget. And now, I'm sorry if you're a 5th year, 6th year, I can't help you. But right now we're fighting with the universities to have them make tuition You come in your freshman year, that's your tuition, and the parents know that until you walk down the aisle.
And thank you, and I do appreciate your work on campus due process. And of course, we got the mother of free speech here, Representative Maddox, who's going to be the queen of protecting the Second Amendment on campuses with Mr. Roberts here. So thank you all so much.
Thank you. All right, any other questions here? Yes, sir?
Yeah, I've heard a lot of good ideas up here. Is everything you're doing. What can we do to help you? What mechanisms are there that we can help you, support you, facilitate you to get this done? I hear bills across one chamber gathering dies. Leadership kills a bill before it even gets out of the committee on committees. What can this group do to help you achieve your goals?
You said the word right there whenever you said leadership. In the Kentucky General Assembly, the prerogative to move a bill, generally speaking, whether it's in the House or the Senate, rests with 5 members, House and Senate leadership. So although we represent you in our individual districts, if you feel passionate about an issue, it's also imperative to reach out to members of House or Senate leadership. And in some instances, if a bill has been assigned to committee, to the chairman and members of the committee. But that's really leadership. That's their prerogative as to whether or not to move a bill. And there may be perhaps a senator that would want to speak to the variances, the process in the Senate, what would be helpful to you all.
Well, I'll tell you the biggest thing. The biggest thing that really is helpful is you've got to realize how Kentucky is structured, right? The General Assembly in 1 year has power for about 85 days. In the next year, we've got it for about 115 days. But as we all saw during COVID, by Constitution, when we adjourn, there's very, 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 very little that the General Assembly can do if the governor doesn't want to do it. Because literally the General Assembly loses its power by Constitution on April the 15th, which is probably a good thing in some ways. But it's a bad thing in other ways, right? And so, we've got 80 to 20 in the House. You know, we've got 31 to 7 in the Senate. We've advanced a lot of things. I mean, Jay and I are probably the only ones, well, I don't think anybody else here has served when Democrats control the chamber, but you and me. So, I mean, you know, we have the ability to do a lot of things. The problem is, it's the executive branch's job to then go and follow the law. And so if we elect a Democrat governor, you can expect to get Democrat results when we leave town. And that's what we largely saw. A lot of us threw fits during COVID. We had hearings, on and on and on. But ultimately, we had no power. So we have to control the executive branch to really get these things brought into place. You want to talk about government efficiency. You want to talk about, you know, making sure that the right people can vote. All these things. It's all executive branch function that happens when we leave. And we really need that added help.
Just a quick on here. You just gave the numbers of Republicans out on the Democrats, both houses, everything. I don't care if it's like the president. The governor can say, no, I'm not going to say it. You guys have veto authority. You guys do not use the veto authority. You guys have to go around the governor.
Well, yeah, no, you're not right. We overrode everything he did. Every single thing.
There were some bills that went through that should have been overrode.
No, we overrode everything that he vetoed. Every last one.
Now, this is what he did, though. He tried to claim that we didn't give the money for it. So we vetoed him, but he's actually trying to enforce bills that we vetoed on the basis that we had
we overrode.
He vetoed him, we overrode him, but he said, I'm not going to do them anyway.
That needs to get out.
That's why you needed to.
Literally, that needs to get out there because it's not heard enough. Because all those Republicans are like, so we give you the House, we give you everything. Let us know.
Yeah, to this gentleman's question, the point you're making, that's one way you can help, because that message is coming from us, but there's only 111 of us. You guys are force multipliers, so you need to share the information.
He's
being obstinate. We're passing laws, and he's just being obstinate, not doing what we've directed him to do.
Can you tell the other infantrymen that's up here when he starts talking about force multipliers? Oh, man.
All right, any other questions? So this might be a spearhead for you, sir. Was it Marine Corps or Army? Infantry? Army? All right, Bell 11 Bravo here. So one of the big things that kind of I saw, and this became public due to the Joe Rogan experience, I believe, like a kind of national story where Texas basically absorbed a spearhead in Kentucky's administration before Andy Bashir came in and speared it in the throat. So we were working on getting psilocybin and MDMA program started with UK to really develop something to help vets with PTSD and then expand that out into opioid treatment, other PTSD struggling individuals. If anybody willing to pick up that mantle, revisit with that individual, and return that to Kentucky to spearhead that with the state of Texas, and kind of get our backing back into that to develop that technology as it's been regularly seen via ibogaine, psilocybin, and other psychedelic kind of touchy subject in a conservative world, right? But if it's working, and 1 dose to 10 doses being an effective treatment for people that were asked to go and do a job that no one else decided to raise their hand for, do that we have a all-volunteer force, and we get asked to do everything and go prosecute stuff that we're not prepared for, we go and do it because that's our job and we figure it out on the spot, like you know. But I've had too many buddies die coming back here, as opposed to a rocket attack or a Taliban ambush in comparison to putting a block in their own mouth and taking their lives. And I'm sorry to get too graphic here, but quite frankly, it's overdone talking about 22 a day. It's my best friend, it's his best friend, that we're sitting out in the freaking desert for 18 months straight, not seeing our families, hanging out over there during COVID in a tyrannical rule, violation of our constitutional rights, and we've got nothing to do other than sit down and eat shit, excuse my language, and then come home with our problems, get abandoned after our gold ribbon ceremony, go through the struggles of VA, and I know that's none of your guys' control, but at least we could be showing some level of initiative in this Commonwealth as we almost had it across the finish line before Andy Bashir took his first term, I believe, or maybe it's his second term re-election, but one way or the other. Are you?
I am not familiar with the background, would love to talk after this offline and learn more about it.
I'll jump in. So the individual he was talking about was Brian Hubbard. Brian Hubbard was head of the opioid abatement fund, the opioid abatement fund. And I spoke to Brian about this. I think Senator Donald Douglas did file legislation to help move that, or he was supposed to in the last legislative session. I don't know if it got through. It came in late. We were in a short 30-day session, so it didn't come in. But there is still work on that issue. Brian is interested in continuing to push that here in the States, and so I'd expect to see more.
I can add to that, being on the Veterans Military Affairs Committee, that is being talked about. I don't know where we're at this point. We'll start meeting again in June. But that your issue is being discussed.
Thank you.
And I also want to make it, for all the 13 Bravos out there, we are the king of battle. I just want to remind you guys that.
That's funny.
You first, then me with you.
Where do we stand on the con, and where do we stand on the hands-free distracted driving bill? I know they didn't make it, but are we making any progress beating our heads up against this thing?
Oh, my favorite subject is the con. And so I did file the bills this year to repeal competitive veto, went nowhere, short session. Representative Nemitz and myself, we're doing a more creative approach that's going to be population-based. Don't love it, but I cannot beat Eastern Western Kentucky and the Kentucky Hospital Association and all the legislators that they line the pockets. I can't beat that. So what we're going to do is we're working on it right now on how can we expand that, certainly here, by our population. So it's coming.
I got in a battle with our freedom fighters forum with a senator from Western Kentucky that's all for the con. He thinks it's the greatest thing since sliced cheese.
Well, this is a lie that they say. They say if we get rid of certificate of need, that your hospital is going to close. And I always say, riddle me this. How does Ohio, with a similar population, they have one restriction on certificate of need, and that's long-term care. Indiana, Same thing, same population. You drive down the middle of Meridian Street, Indianapolis, you have more hospitals than you have car dealerships. And guess what? None of them have gone out of business. None of the rural hospitals are closing. But in Kentucky, we've lost 4 in the last 10 years. We're 17 that are in imminent danger of closing right now. So, you know, they're clinging to the certificate of need, and meanwhile, we're hemorrhaging money. The quality is terrible. Look at our health stats in Kentucky. What we have isn't working. But what we've got to do is try to dismantle this lie that certificate of need saves hospitals. It doesn't. But until we get the legislators to look at data, which we have specifically to Kentucky, you know, back when Obamacare came in, the Affordable Care Act came in, there was a task force that looked at what are services that are undeficient. They came up with a whole list back in 2013. All these services were deficient. Ambulances, ambulatory surgical, psychiatric services, chemical dependency. These are just a few. In 2013, the General Assembly chose not to act on that. Here we are in 2025. So, like...
So for over 50 years, we have had certificate of need. And during that time, rural health care has become more expensive, their quality has not gone up, and hospitals have been closing for 50 years. The definition of insanity is keeping on doing the same thing and thinking you're going to fix the problem. CON will not fix the problem. We need to get rid of all of those services and open it to the free market. And that's what they're afraid of. Giving each one of you choice. We're going to have hearings. During this session, they've committed on having hearings for her bill, the House bill, for reducing these services. We need to see the public show up at these hearings and not just the special interests who want to keep it up. So that's what you can do. Show up at these hearings, express your desire to have the free market in healthcare just like we got for everything else. Because it hasn't worked.
Didn't the ACA also reduce funding to the rural health hospitals that caused them to be financially underwater? I mean, I remember back in the day they were talking about how once they brought the ACA in, Obamacare, whatever the hell you want to call it, they were underfunding these small hospitals, and the cities, the major medical centers were sucking up all the money, and there wasn't anything left for the rural hospitals, and that's why they started failing.
Well,
how does that relate to 33B?
Don't give me a turn.
That's totally different.
Michael Frazier, you're not allowed to ask questions. Somebody else had one out here.
So we're talking about, I'll be quick, this is more of a comment, not a question. Just talking about the college stuff, talking about free market capitalism. Obviously, my last question, you can tell I'm free market capitalist. But it's very interesting, the schools that are popping up, the new age schools, instead of going into debt to go to college, taking out loans, basically the college and new age colleges, they're investing actually money into the student, and you have to sign an agreement that after 5 to 10 years after you graduate, you get back 15 or 20% back to the college. So instead of taking loans out, you actually have to get the university back 15 to 20%. So it's an investment. I'm all about incentives. Capitalism is all about incentives. So if the college has an incentive to educate you to make some money to add value to the capitalist system, then you actually make more money from that than the actual college educational loans you pay back to the college. So there's something to think about. I don't know how the government can get involved if it's not really a government issue. It's something that's very interesting to me, rather than actually taking loans out, because people never pay back the loans. You know, people with bad behavior, they're incentivized by bad behavior, they don't act that way. So I like that kind of concept.
All right, you got a question right here?
Actually, so I want to make a point here. I have military retiree ID. I have VA ID. I have a state driver's license. I have a concealed carry ID for outside the state. How many IDs do I need? I also have a passport at home. As for my kids voting, I reminded them the whole time before they moved out, they lived in the People's Republic of Dad. Now, my real question here is about illegal aliens in the state. I think Mary Ann is the illegal alien guy. Explain what it is that. And it seems like there's very little being done. This is the time to do this with President Trump being in charge. I'm sure you hear daily on the news the people that are being exported because they are here illegally or committing crimes. Okay, one of the things that attracts them to the United States is the money. The more we do to cut that money off through systems like E-Verify, verifying their citizenship when they're sucking down Kentucky tax dollars, the faster they will go away. Yet it seems like this last session, all of that was put to the side of the table and nothing happened. What's it take?
I think you need to remember, by and large, with the exception of Jefferson County, which we continue to work on, but it's a problem, and a little bit of Fayette and some smatterings, Kentucky is very cooperative with the federal enforcement of those statutes. That's your sheriff's offices, your police departments, your jails, etc. Your county attorneys, your Commonwealth attorneys are all working on that outside of a few little pockets around the state. But by and large, the enforcement mechanism is a federal mechanism, and so they have to, our local law enforcement people who do this have to work in conjunction with those agencies. The Boone County Sheriff can't just go out and say, start showing me your papers, right? I mean, everybody's got a Fourth Amendment right as citizens, and I'm guessing TJ would make a lot of money if every police department started demanding we all show papers, right? And so we have to work inside the confines, and yes, the federal government's doing great work, and then we have to hold accountable, right? And we're working on this, those folks that call themselves sanctuary jurisdictions, because that's a problem. That's real.
Human trafficking is one of the ugliest crimes on the planet. The sooner we get rid of it, or at least try to downgrade it to the state, the better off we all will be.
Agree.
My best friend is the head of ICE here in Kentucky, Jerry Bacon, Agent Bacon. He says Jefferson County is the only problem. It's the only county they're having issues with.
All right, any other questions? Or we got you?
I just want to thank TJ for his upcoming legislative bill to end property taxes. Something maybe we can just get approved sooner or later is to freeze the property values and freeze the tax rates. Because there's a loophole in the statute, the KRS 13210, that is allowing some of our special tax districts to go and game the system and take more revenue than they're or we fill over time, 4%. So thanks again for coming up with that. It's going to be awesome.
Of course, and I'm going to start talking about the taxes a little bit. Now, if you guys, if you heard me go on this rant before, don't answer the question, okay? But there is a state that has in their constitution a requirement that before any new tax is imposed, any tax increase, new fee, or fee increase becomes law, it goes to the ballot for the affected population. It tells you what is getting taxed, what that tax rate would be, how much it's going to cost the average family, and where that money is going to go. And if it doesn't get the majority of the voters, it doesn't take effect. And any guess what state that is?
Ohio.
Oh, it's not Ohio. You think it's Florida, you think it's Texas or New Hampshire, those free states, those model states. It's Colorado. And it's been that way for 33 years. And that's one of those things, like, one of the questions people are asking is, what are we going to do to make sure that we still get the revenue if we do away with property tax? So, for one, there's a moral case that I want to make first. You don't really own your property if you're paying the government every year to keep it. You just don't. Other ways to raise revenue, and I think it's through that taxpayer bill of rights to adopt a consent to the governed model. Let the people know what we want to spend the money on and where that money is going to go. Law enforcement is well funded in Colorado, except in those defund the police jurisdictions. Education is well funded. Their roads and bridges aren't crumbling. It is a good model that I think we can learn from quite drastically. We get rid of base budgeting, we are transparent about where this money is going, and we truly involve the citizenry. Kentucky would enter a golden age of prosperity if we did that.
You, sir?
Real quick, you were talking about land taxes we had. My parents bought a farm out here in 1967. I grew up out here, still out here. 28 years away in the military, moved back here because it's a great state, period, place to live. They paid off that farm years ago. They're still paying taxes every year. Bullshit. Here's another bit, and I'll go to something else. Car taxes. Why in the hell I pay damn car taxes? And every year till the day I die, I pay tax on the damn car. It's something I already paid for. But why is Kentucky taking my money from me? And this is Kentucky, not the federal government. Kentucky legislators saying, "Oh, we want your money. We want your money." That is bullcrap. If I buy television, I pay car tax or pay television tax one time. You don't collect it every year. England does every year. We don't. But cars, every year I have that vehicle, I'm giving you money. Bull crap.
Last year I filed a bill, House Bill 60, that would have removed the state's portion of the property tax on motor vehicles. And, you know, unfortunately it did not progress, but whenever we're looking at tax reform as a whole, to me, that is a no-brainer. And from a philosophical standpoint, we often talk about making up the revenue. But I don't feel like we can, and this is absolutely no offense, we've got a good arbitrary in the Senate, but we need to have a conversation about cuts. Because tax reform is not going to ever result in a tax cut unless it is revenue negative. Instead of talking about where we can make up the money, let's talk about what we can cut.
Right now, they're saying they're cutting Medicare. No, they're not. They're going, let's go back to pre-COVID numbers. That's not a cut. They're not taking money away. They're not. We overspent it way back there. That goes for all of us. The numbers we were spending before COVID and what we spent during COVID, go back before that. Oh no, we can never stop spending money. We want more money. Bull crap.
Yeah.
Stop spending money.
And a lot of this is fraud and waste and abuse.
Exactly. Exactly.
That can be cut without impacting anybody. And it's big. I gave you guys a shout out.
All right, we're going to do one more question. I'm just going to do one from the list. Tackling it out. I want to hear about House Bill 6, the one with the regulatory overreach that has the $500,000 cap. What are sort of the immediate benefits you guys will see from that sort of limitation on government overreach?
Well, that is House Bill 6, often called the REINS Act. I filed that identical piece of legislation word for word, comma for comma. It was Senate Bill 20. House Bill 6 is the one that became law. It stops the proliferation of government. It stops the growth of government. It prevents the executive branch from promulgating new regs that will have an economic impact on taxpayers of $500,000 or more in a 2-year period. So that's how we start to stop the growth of government. We start looking at cutting what we already have.
So let me give you an example, kind of using Matt up here. So Matt runs a pub down in Georgetown, right?
Yes.
And during COVID, like a lot of small businesses, he got shut down, right? And for those of us that run small businesses, very few of us, you know, I'm not one, I'm guessing you're not, don't have some type of debt. And while the governor took the liberty to shut businesses down, nobody really did anything to help us figure out how to service those loans during that point in time, right? So the real benefit is to the taxpayer, with the intent being that you're not going to incur additional costs just because the governor wants to do something while we're out of town. And administrative regs is kind of how they rule via fiat, while the General Assembly doesn't have the power that I described earlier. And so that bill largely addresses that for citizens as a whole.
Anyone else? All right, well, thank you guys for coming. All these guys will stick around after.